And today we're going to be talking about linear equations with one variable. We'll first go through the basics of an equation and how to solve for x, and we'll do it with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. For each section, there are 3 problems we'll do together, and 6 you can try on your own. Let's get started. Most of the time, your teacher will give you a bunch of equations and it'll say solve the equation, or solve for the variable, or solve for x. It all means the same thing. It's asking you to figure out what the letter x equals. So when you see an equation like this one, the letter x is actually representing a number, and our goal is to figure out what that number is. In this case, you should already know that 2 plus 3 equals 5. I mean, I'm assuming here, but hopefully you already know this. So you've technically solved this equation and your answer is x equals 2. It'll definitely get harder with more complex equations, but you'll be able to solve them no problem. Let's take a look at how we got there. We have our first equation, x plus 3 equals 5. And on the left, I've written out a couple tips that should be helpful in solving linear equations. Tip number 1, always remember your endgame, which is to isolate x. Everything you do should be towards the goal of getting all of the x's on one side of the equal sign, and all of the numbers without an x on the other side of the equal sign. And you should end up with an answer that looks something like x equals some number. In our equation, all of the x's are already on the left, but we need to get all of the numbers on the right. And we could do this by subtracting 3 from the left side. This brings us to tip number 2. Always do everything to both sides of the equation. Since we're subtracting 3 from the left side, you also have to subtract 3 from the right side. And when we put it all together, we're not doing anything to our x, so let's bring it down. 3 minus 3 equals 0, which cancels out. And 5 minus 3 equals 2. And now we have x equals 2, which is our final answer. But let's not forget tip number 3, always check your answer. The absolute worst thing is when you make a silly mistake and you get the entire answer wrong when you actually know how to do the problem. When we got our answer x equals 2, we're basically saying that the letter x in the original equation can be replaced by the number 2. So let's plug the answer back into the original equation, which means replacing the letter x with the number 2. You get that 2 plus 3 equals 5, which is true, so it looks like we got the right answer. Nice! Now we have x plus 4 equals 2. Same concept. We have all of our x's on one side of the equation, so let's get all of our numbers on the other side. In order to do that, we need to subtract 4. And always remember, what we do to one side of the equation, we need to do to the other. Let's bring down the x. 4 minus 4 equals 0, so that cancels out. And 2 minus 4 equals negative 2. So we have x equals negative 2 as our answer. And let's always remember to check our answer. So we'll plug back in negative 2 for x in the original equation. So we have negative 2 plus 4 equals 2. And 2 equals 2, so it looks like we got the right answer. I also want to show you guys what getting the wrong answer looks like. So say instead of subtracting 4, we added 4 by mistake. So as our answer, we get x equals 6. When we plug in 6 for x, we'll get that 10 equals 2, which is definitely not true because 2 equals 2. So you know you have the wrong answer and you have to go back and check your work. But no big deal, you'll get the right answer the second time around. Last one. Now we have 6 equals 5 plus x. This equation looks a little weird because the x is on the right side, but it doesn't matter, it's the same concept. Since all of our x's are already on the right side, let's move all of our numbers to the left side. And in order to do that, let's subtract 5. And always remember, you have to do the same thing to both sides of the equation. So let's subtract 5 from the left side also. 6 minus 5 equals 1. 5 minus 5 equals 0, it cancels out. And let's bring down the x. So for our final answer, we get 1 equals x. Let's always check our answer and plug back in 1 for x in the original equation, and we get that 6 equals 5 plus 1, and 6 equals 6, which is the correct answer. So now that you have linear equations with addition down, feel free to try out these equations. I'll show you guys the answers in. Since you guys are experts at addition, you'll be experts at subtraction too. Here we have x minus 3 equals 5. And in order to isolate x, let's get all of our numbers without an x on the right. Because we have x minus 3, let's add 3 so that it cancels out. And always remember to do the same thing on both sides, so let's add 3 to the right side as well. And when you put it all together, let's bring x down. Negative 3 plus 3 equals 0, so it cancels out. And 5 plus 3 equals 8. So as our final answer, we get that x equals 8. Let's check our answer by plugging in 8 for x in our original equation. We'll get that 8 minus 3 equals 5. 5 equals 5, so our answer checks out. Now we have 7 equals x minus 9. Don't be intimidated that the x is on the other side. Let's keep doing the same thing. Since the x is already on the right, let's get all of our numbers on the left. And in order to do that, let's add 9 to cancel out the minus 9. We have to do it to both sides. And when we put it all together, 7 plus 9 equals 16. Let's bring down the x. Negative 9 plus 9 equals 0, so it cancels out. So we get that 16 equals x. When we plug in our solution, we get that 7 equals 7. So again, we got the right answer. All right, there's so many negatives in this one, but it's fine. It's fine. We have x minus 7 equals negative 4. Let's isolate x by moving all of our numbers to the right. And we can do this by adding 7 to both sides. When we put it all together, let's bring down x. Negative 7 plus 7 is 0, so it cancels out. And negative 4 plus 7 equals 3. And when we check our answer, let's plug in 3 for the x in the original equation. So we get that 3 minus 7 equals negative 4. Negative 4 equals negative 4, so we got the right answer. Again, I have a couple practice problems for you guys, so answers in. Multiplication is a little different, but it's not too bad. Here we have 3x equals 6. And when you see 3x, it actually means 3 times x. Which also means that it's 3 multiplied by some unknown number that we have to figure out. In order to isolate x, we need to undo what's being done to x. Since it's 3 times x, we need to divide by 3 to cancel it out. And always remember, we have to do the same thing to both sides. When we put it all together, we have 3x divided by 3, so the 3's cancel out, and we're just left with x. 6 divided by 3 equals 2, and we have our answer, x equals 2. When we check our answer and plug it back into the equation, we get that 3 times 2, I'm just going to use parentheses here, equals 6, which is true, so the correct answer is x equals 2. Okay, let's try another one. 5x equals 10. In order to isolate x, we need to get rid of that 5 that's being multiplied by x. And in order to do that, we need to do the opposite, which is divide by 5. Let's do it on both sides, and when we put it all together, 5x divided by 5, the 5's cancel out, so we're left with x, and on the right, 10 divided by 5 equals 2, so we get that the answer is x equals 2. When we plug 2 back into the original equation, we get 5 times 2 equals 10, which is true, so we have the correct answer. For our final equation, we have 6x equals 10. In order to isolate x by itself, we need to divide by 6. Let's do it on both sides. 6x divided by 6 equals 1. When you divide 10 by 6, you actually don't get a whole number, but let's simplify the fraction. Y'all remember GCFs, right? Greatest common factor. We know that the GCF of 10 and 6 is 2. So 10 over 6 is the same thing as 5 over 3. Okay, let's plug it back in. We'll get 6 times 5 over 3 equals 10. I'm not even sure if this is right, so let's just keep going. We can cancel out the 3 from the 6, and we're just left with 2. And 2 times 5 equals 10, which is true. So we have the right answer. Let's do some practice problems. We made it, we did it, we're on to division. I hate division, I hate fractions, I hate multiplying fractions, I hate dividing fractions, but it's just something we have to deal with. This first equation isn't bad. X divided by 2 equals 6. As always, we need to isolate x, but right now x is divided by 2. So in order to isolate and undo that, you need to multiply by 2. And always remember to do the same thing to both sides. When we put it all together, the 2's cancel out on the left side. Like we sort of went over before, any number divided by itself cancels out. We're just left with x. 6 times 2 equals 12. So for our final answer, we got that x equals 12. When we check our answer and plug back in 12 for x in the original equation, we get that 12 divided by 2 equals x, which is true, so we got the right answer. Okay, let's try another one, this time with a negative number. Here we have negative x over 4 equals 1. So even though there's a negative value, we'll still do the same thing and isolate x. Since this x is being divided by negative 4, we need to do the opposite and multiply by negative 4. Let's do it to both sides. When we put it all together, the negative 4's cancel out, and 1 times negative 4 equals negative 4. And when we check our answer, we need to plug in this negative 4 value as x in our original equation. So now we have -4 divided by -4 equals 1. And 1 equals 1, so we have the right answer. There are a couple ways to do this one, but I'll show you guys what I think is easiest. Here we have 2x over 3 equals 5. And this is actually the same thing as 2 over 3x. Our main goal is to isolate x and get rid of the 2 over 3. The good thing about fractions is that everything cancels out when you multiply by the reciprocal. So let's multiply by the reciprocal, which is 3 over 2. And of course, we'll do it to both sides. When we simplify, this cancels out. And 5 times 3 over 2 equals 15 over 2. Let's go back and check our answer by plugging in what we got for x. So now we have 2 over 3 times 15 over 2. Oh, I hate fractions. The 2's cancel out, and we're left with 15 over 3, which is the same thing as 15 divided by 3, which is 5. So thank God we got the right answer. You're definitely going to want to try out these equations on your own. Everything gets easier with practice. So pause the video, see if you can solve them, and I'll show you guys the solutions in Alright, that's it. Hope this was helpful for your homework or test that's tomorrow morning. Like, comment, or subscribe if it did. I'll see you in the next video.